Discussion? We have to wait for Martha to come back. No, do we not? I guess we can go. We've got enough. Yep, so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And one abstention because of an absence, so it's 4-0-1. Okay,
She didn't abstain. It's
Pardon me?
4-0.
Hmm?
She didn't abstain. She isn't here.
oh, 0? Yeah,
4-0.
okay, so 4-0-0. All right, public participation. We're on informational,
Minutes.
oh, we have approval of minutes for 2:14 for this as well. Regular session,
Yeah.
okay?
I move
So-
we approve the minutes as the final,
The second copy?
yeah, the
Second copy that got sent,
So
yes.
we'll just call that the
As-
minutes as submitted.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And I'm an aye, so 4-0-0.
Students.
All right.
So, Madam Chair, I probably subcommittee reports is where I would jump to.
Okay.
Are there any?
Okay, so we're at the point where we're going to do informational reports, and we already did the student report, so we're going to go to subcommittee reports. Dr. Conti?
With vacation, I don't believe we've had any subcommittees that had met, so, again, I think we can move right to Mr. Moran.
Okay, Mr. Moran, you're on.
Ways and Means report.
Ways and Means.
The Ways and Means Committee is starting their annual budget season tomorrow night with its inaugural budget overview session. So I don't have anything new to report at this time, but we are getting started and for the long slog to town meeting in May.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. All right. Any other announcements anyone would like to make? Okay. Next is Learning, Equity, and Thriving. Dr. Conti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we've already had the naming of Dottie Way, so thank you. So I was going to move on with your permission to item B.
That's the beam.
The Beam report. So we started this conversation in the, I think it was in August, I believe, and Ms. Purchase brought in some folks to look at the Beam program, which I didn't realize actually stands for Burlington's Extended Academic Model. It's an acronym. So and so the report was finalized. I think it was almost over break. So I think you all just received it. I have gone through it quickly. I haven't gone through it thoroughly. But I guess the agenda item was maybe in the hope that we would have received it earlier, so I apologize for that. We may not be able to have an in-depth conversation, but the report is completed. You have it, so again, we'll make it publicly available. Certainly would need to put it on a future agenda item as people wanted to have a more in-depth discussion. There is an executive summary and a lot of appendices, but I think the report's conclusion essentially are that the type of enrichment that is the goal of the current BEAM program really should be something that we are encouraging all classrooms to provide and to allow all students to access. So I think that's something that we need to talk about. If there are other programmatic goals of this committee, then I think we need to rethink how students access the BEAM program, because it, as currently designed and as currently students are recommended, we're not getting a representation of all students across all of our elementary schools sort of into the program itself. So I think there are some, my recommendation would really be to try to focus on our core academic, our tier one, our core program, and really trying to add enrichment into that. And if we wanted to maintain some of the BEAM activities, we could do that through an after-school club or something that would be accessible to all kids or something like that. So anyway, the report's here. I know this was a very brief conversation, but I think I just started to get through it quickly. I know you all haven't had a chance to read it, but it is done, and I will make sure that it's on a future agenda item for you all to get into. So again, Madam Chair, I'm not sure. I'll try to answer questions now, but like I said, I just basically read it very, very quickly.
Right, I was going to say, I didn't have much time even sitting at the airport. I didn't even get through the first, 5 or 10 pages if I was lucky. So did anyone else have more time to look it over? I really would prefer that we waited to discuss this because we didn't really get enough time to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I read it. I think it was a very good report. I thought they did a good job of gathering many, many stakeholders and like a diverse section of stakeholders and a lot of different investigations. I'd be interested in hearing what Dr. Purchase thinks of it and what she recommends going forward. I think she'll agree with you, but that's one piece of feedback I'd like to get as well.
Sure.
Ms. Monaco?
Yes, I read it also, and I agree that there were a lot of stakeholders and a lot of good information. I do think that having a program of some sort for kids that happen to be very talented and gifted academically is a good thing to do. I think it helps kids that are bored with an ordinary class schedule. And I understand the issues surrounding equity of, and what's offered to various students or all students. But I'd like some creative thinking on, and maybe some studying of other districts and what they do. Because I think to not have anything extra for the kids that have prior to now been in Beam, I think it's just sort of a letdown that, these kids are capable of so much that I'd like to see them have opportunities.
Thank you, Ms. Monaco. Ms. Simon?
Yeah, I did read through all of the materials, and I would like to suggest we have a future conversation about it.
And I agree with that as well. Because I did, like I said, when I went through it, I liked the fact that they got multiple sources and did a lot of research and had some outside people looking at it. It wasn't just people in our school district. So I was very impressed with the way this was evaluated. But I also agree with Ms. Monaco. I feel very strongly that we've got to be creative, and maybe I hadn't thought of really looking at some of the neighboring communities and what they do, but maybe we should investigate that too. So I want to have more time to look this over, or all of us do, and then we can put it on a future date. So,
Yeah.
all right.
I think there was specific curriculum for gifted and talented students mentioned in the, linked in the report. So if that's something, I think one of the things was that this wasn't curriculum based. So if we wanted to do a particular gifted program, we would need to make it curriculum based and have more strict criteria. So I think
Right.
I'm open to that too.
Right. And Mr. Foss?
Yeah, I'll only add that I do want to have a further discussion once we have more time to digest, but I thought it was fascinating, the appendices that were included that showed what it was in the 80s and what it was in the late 90s, and the evolution of the program. I think that as the discussion moves forward, it's probably appropriate to have the next evolution into what Beam could be, because I agree with Ms. Monaco that there should be something. It's just, what is it going to look like moving forward?
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll move on. We'll put this on a future date. And if we could move on to the field study report update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So at last town meeting last May, we asked for a warrant article to support a comprehensive field study. We had lots of youth groups and some parent groups complaining about the conditions of some of our fields and wanting us to pay attention to a particular playing surface or a particular sport. We felt a better course of action would be to look at the town comprehensively, all of our athletic facilities, in a way that allowed us to maybe plan 5 to 10 years out. And so that was the purpose of the warrant article. Bob, that study was completed. We have a draft that you'd shared with the committee. My understanding is you've had a meeting also subsequently with Park and Rec, and I think I walked in on a meeting with Mr. Foss, who was the school committee's representative to the Park and Rec Commission. So again, I'm going to turn it over, with your permission, Madam Chair, to Bob to get some of the details.
Well, thank you through the chair. First, I'd like to just clarify that while it's not complete, a draft was shared. So I just want everyone to know that we haven't necessarily shared that with the public, but we have shared that with the school committee, again, members of the Recreation Department, Athletics Director, and then myself. While we're reviewing that, we do have a meeting scheduled for this Friday to meet with the engineering firm that's doing the study to make some changes, and also after meeting with Brendan Egan, Parks and Rec Director, we've identified a few more fields, 7 more fields that we want to add to that study. So initially at town meeting, we had presented a list of fields that we wanted to focus on first, and that's what is identified in the draft. But like I said, we're looking to add additional fields onto that study. Admittedly so, those who have seen it, it's a 500-page document. It's a lot to digest. One of the things that we want to focus on as well with this meeting on Friday is really streamlining it a little bit, not necessarily taking out content, but really organizing the content that's there so it's a little bit easier to read. Doesn't matter your skill level or how great you can read all these plans, it's just a lot to digest right now. That's not necessarily saying that everything is bad with this report, it's just that there's a lot. What could go into a new field, what could go into an old field is represented in this document. Even the water tables of the existing property lines are there. Some people just want to know where the dugout is, but again, when we're looking at a larger site, we really need to take into consideration, again, where the water lines are, where the property lines are, who our surrounding neighbors are, and so forth. But again, hopefully soon we'll have a finalized plan. We'll share that obviously with the town and all the players that need to see it. I'm looking forward to being able to share that, but I'll answer any questions that we have tonight for more discussion.
I saw Ms. Massardo's hand went up first.
Sure. I was a little surprised, but not too surprised at the amount of poor ratings we got. But the question I have, and like you said, is 490-something pages, so I Control-F'd as much as I could. Is there a component that says, okay, we have X high school sport teams, X youth soccer teams, X field hockey teams, baseball teams, and you have this number of soccer teams in fields, and that's not enough. You have only 2 baseball fields, that's not enough. I was looking for that piece as well. Is that part of this? Was that expected?
Again, through the chair, I don't believe specifically that's addressed by saying that. I think that what we're waiting for is some pieces that will dive a little bit deeper into that. But again, as far as like a recommendation onto how many fields we should have, I think that may be more of subjective. That will be at the end for us to decide. But I don't know that we specifically asked for them to identify us adding more or less of a particular field.
Ms. Simon?
This 493 pages starts with a table of contents that says it includes cost estimates, permitting implications, and conclusions and recommendations, and it doesn't include those. So, great, I'm glad we got this far. I'm glad you're meeting with them again, because this is not a complete report. It doesn't have any summary or recommendations or conclusions. And that's what I was looking for. It's a geologic study. And I appreciate your comment that it would be much better if they repeat the same thing over and over again for each field, but it doesn't say anything about that field. It just says this is how we look at a field. So, I mean, you're right. Thank you. Ask them to streamline it, but we still don't have the full report. This is not going to give us anything useful in this state. So I was very disappointed, but I know it's a draft. So, and I'm glad, and we've been asking what's happening. So I'm glad we have this information. I'm glad it's moving along. I'm just hoping this isn't the end.
Again, through the chair, if I could address that. Again, I will stress, not the end. It is a draft. It's taken longer than myself, athletics director, Parks and Rec, you all would like to see. So again, we have this now. Again, the meeting on Friday, we will hope to address more. I can't promise that Friday afternoon we will have a final draft, but at least we'll have some working action items to leave from that meeting, and then we will push to make sure that this is a important item to us to get quickly. I think the more we share this, I do agree that it's not a final product that I'm proud of, but it's definitely has some takeaway points that I think are beneficial. But once that final product is done, I think, at least I'm anticipating that we will enjoy it.
If I may follow up, to me, it's not about how fast it gets done either. So that's not the point. To me, the point is that I would like to see it be complete and useful. So this is just stage one in my mind. That's all.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, again, I believe this is stage one, and the point of sharing it in draft form is for you to see it as early as possible, and then to not lose the forest for the trees. I think, Ms. Massardo, your point is, clearly we have some significant field needs. I think those field needs are not only for school-based activities, but also for the entire town, youth-based sports. So I do think developing this plan is going to require, again, significant funding, and I think that's really the point that we're trying to make, that we are all going to have to prioritize how we make improvements over time. And again, while a lot of these fields sit on school property, many of these fields don't. So again, one of the recommendations is for the land behind the current town building, right? Where the
61 Center Street, where the recreation and senior center building.
senior center is, the town may have other aspirations for that property. So it may, again, require some conversations that we have to move forward. So again, that's really why I do think having the report be useful is absolutely critical. But I think the point we're making now is we're not talking minor changes, and probably the efforts will fall outside some of the yearly annual capital warrant dollars that we have. I think we're talking some projects that would probably be required to be added to the debt schedule and to the debt service. So again, I think that's the bigger picture, and we will try to make the document useful and less repetitive, and then really talk to this committee about prioritizing needs.
Kevin, can I ask one more question?
Yeah, Ms. Massardo.
You just made me think of it, Dr. Grundy. Basketball courts are not at all included in this, right? And I saw the Ice Palace mentioned, but it was like the soil under the Ice Palace, like we care about that, but,
Well-
and pools and things like that. So like, this isn't comprehensive, it's just fields.
I thought they did look at the Ice Palace.
The Ice Palace was on the list, but I couldn't find any detail beyond the soil underneath the Ice Palace.
So again, through the chair. So initially at one of our previous school committee meetings and then a town meeting, we presented a whole entire list. I can read that list, or I can share it with you all again. The priority was on athletic sports fields throughout the town. I guess the fields is the key word here. So whether it's grass and or turf is the focus of it. The Burlington Ice Palace was added into it, yes, but basketball courts were not. So specifically, if we have a standalone basketball court somewhere, not looked at, but if there's a basketball court somewhere else on the property, it can be reviewed.
Yeah, I only ask because I know we've talked about potentially like a full-size basketball court at Fox Hill, and I think it speaks to the comprehensive needs of, like, okay, for all of the programs that we have in the town, not even just school sports, but town sports and things like that, do we have enough fields that are the right size and things? But if the basketball court's not included, it's fine.
Thank you, Ms. Massardo. Anyone else? Okay. We'll go to the next item, which is school choice, first reading.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an annual vote. As the committee knows, it's a first reading. So Principal Sullivan is again recommending that for the 2023-2024 school year, we continue to offer limited school choice by admitting non-Burlington resident students for a maximum of 10 students in grade 9, 5 students in grade 10, 5 students in grade 11, and 5 students in grade 12. The way the vote works is we actually have to vote in the negative. So if only the high school is participating in school choice, then the requirement is for the committee to formally omit school choice for grades K through 8 for the 2023-2024 school year with a public hearing vote. So again, as this is a first reading, the committee should take it under advisement and hold a public hearing and vote on this matter at the March 14th meeting. Again, and with so have school choice continue with the high school and omit grades K and 8 from the state's school choice program. So when we take that vote, it'll be in a public hearing. We would have to advertise the public hearing, but again, this school choice I think we've had in place for, I think this is my for 15 years at the high school, and again, I know this is a first reading, but I would recommend we continue with our limited school choice program moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Conti. Anyone have any questions? Ms. Massardo?
What's the goal of the school choice, and do we get a lot of school choice? Like, why do we choose to offer it?
We choose to offer it because for many different reasons is we have some students at the high school level whose families are sometimes mobile, and that allows us to keep them enrolled at Burlington High School to have them finish. So that would be one option.
Okay.
I also think that in many cases we have room in our classes, so we're already paying for the teacher, the lights, the building, the heat, whatever. And so adding limited school choice options is a way for us to bring some state revenue to Burlington while not having it cost us a significant amount of money. We don't necessarily fill all of our school choice spots, and if we had more applicants than we had available, we have to hold a lottery, but it would just depend on what we allow. We also have some staff members who can have their children attend Burlington schools by contract, and we can enter their names into the lottery as well for school choice, and if they get selected, then we can get some reimbursement. On your monthly report, you would see in the revolving accounts a school choice line, and that would be the revenue. I think we're up to, what is it, $6,000 or $6,500 students? Around there. So, and again, that's not our full per pupil cost, but again, we're already paying for everything else that we have. So it's an additional revenue source that I think makes sense. Once the students are accepted, for instance, as a 9th grader, we have to take that student all the way through graduation. So if we do accept a 9th grader through school choice, they're our student through high school graduation.
So you get 10 in grade 9, it's cumulative, so we could have 20 school choice seniors, theoretically.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Ms. Monaco?
If a student, let's say we have a sophomore whose family moves out of town, can the sophomore stay under school choice in Burlington?
The sophomore can apply to school choice, and then we would, again, if we had more than the 5, we would pull names out of a lottery, and
Okay.
again, hopefully that name would get pulled.
Right, so my reason for bringing it up is just to show that it's something that's really nice to have for families in that situation.
Yeah, we've had families who've moved an apartment and across the street, and just because of where they're situated, they moved from Burlington to Woburn.
Exactly.
And we've allowed the student to stay at Burlington High School, which, again, not saying anything negative about Woburn High School, but switching high schools in the middle of high school can be a challenge. So again, it's a tool that we use, and I think it's available, and we don't have open school choice, so I think that that's by design.
It's a good thing.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is waste diversion policy, second reading, and we do have an action to take on it.
Sorry, I believe you had a copy of the, here we go. The Burlington Public Schools Waste Diversion Reduction Policy. And so I am recommending the school committee vote to approve the waste reduction and diversion policy as a second reading. And I will include this and make sure it has the proper placement and number in the policy manual with the work that we are doing. So it's sort of outside of that work, but it'll be added into that work as we have moving forward. So that would be my recommendation.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Simon?
I'd like to move to accept this Massachusetts School Waste Reduction and Diversion, the School Waste Reduction and Diversion Policy for the Burlington Public Schools.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, so 5-0-0. Next item is restorative justice trainings and pilot discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item was a request, and so just want to say I don't have a very deep understanding of restorative justice or practices, so it's not going to be a presentation to the committee about the details of the program. What I will say is I can talk about what the district has provided and potentially a future direction. It is mentioned in our Planning for Success document over the 3-year period, but I think we need someone to put together a implementation plan and how that's going to fit into what we currently do. And honestly, I have not had the capacity to do all that this year. So we did offer an introduction to restorative justice professional development for staff. That was October 12th, 13th, 19th, and 20th. And that was provided by Suffolk University, the Restorative Justice Center. And we had 12 participants in that program, and they were representative from elementary to middle to high school. So all 3 levels were represented. I think the feedback, I have the form, the feedback was largely positive about the training. Many felt that it was, at the elementary level, it was very similar and connected to the responsive classroom training that we have, which is a restorative practice sort of in and of itself. There was some crossover there. There also was, I think, more interest at the secondary level, both at the middle school and in the high school level. I think it does connect to some of the visioning work the high school's been working on, including the portrait of a graduate work and other things in terms of how they want to view students and how they want the student experience to be at Burlington High School. So we don't technically have a district pilot underway. And if that was stated last summer, then I just didn't get to it. And but I do think we started some interest. I think we are planning on organizing. This was the Tier 1 training. I think we have interest in providing the Tier 2 training. But really what I would like is if we're going to try a comprehensive program like this, it really needs to be embedded into larger school efforts that we're having. It can't be a one-off, or teachers can't view it as being one more thing. So it has to really be connected to what we're trying to do and present. So again, I'm hopefully that was the intention of this agenda item, is just to keep it as part of our conversation. Again, we did successfully run the training, and if there was the expectation that we would have more of a district pilot, again, I have not gotten to that, so I would say that we're not, that's not happening, so I'll say that.
Any discussion or questions?
Chris and then me,
You do?
and Krista, too.
Yeah.
I just want to know why is it on the agenda?
I asked for it to be on the agenda.
No, again, I think an update, and I hope that was the
That's
intention of the
exactly what I
update,
was-
and so.
That's exactly what I was wanting to hear.
If, again, we did follow through with the training, Ms. Simon, but I haven't
Mm-hmm.
done anything more systemically than that, and I do think this does need to be a systemic effort if it's going to be something that we move forward with.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Simon, any more comments?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Conti. I was looking for an update, and that's what you gave us. That's all, I wasn't expecting a tutorial on
Okay.
restorative justice, so I understand that completely. And I also understand that you're doing 2 jobs plus this year, and that you can't do everything in 1 year. I thought I'd heard that there was some kind of pilot, but this was an initial training, which is great way to start. And I completely agree with you that it needs to be embedded, to be done systematically throughout the district at some point. But I'm glad that you got it started, and that there are now 12 staff people who've had that training and are interested and who understand it. We may find that we can just embed it into responsive classroom. Maybe it's a different animal at the middle and the high school level, but I'm really glad that we're moving forward with the restorative justice, because from what I've learned over the years, it seems like that's an important piece in many school districts to be promoting, cultural proficiency and kids getting along with each other and understanding each other's differences as well as their similarities. So I'm very happy about that. And I was wondering if you could also just an update on the Highland Institute trainings that we were doing. I believe there were 2 sessions for middle school and high school each, and I don't know if they've had both, but have you got any feedback on that? That's another kind of training that I think was related, not as specific as the restorative justice. So I was interested in knowing if you have an update on any of that.
Through the chair, I think the Highland Institute is providing training in culturally responsive teaching to secondary level, so both middle school and high school teachers. We have an upcoming professional development day on March 9th. The middle school and high school will be participating in their second session with the Highlander Institute next week. I think the initial feedback is largely positive. I think that some of the staff felt like it was repetitive, but I think what they also complimented, it was great to have a common starting point for everybody. So they felt like a lot of our training wasn't required for all to attend, so people were at different levels, and it was hard to have sort of a staff-based conversation. So I think they were welcoming that sort of a common initiative across both middle and high school. We're planning, through the chair, to get, I think, more specific feedback, because I think the conversation that we are having is not to jump around, but to make sure our training is consistent. And if the Highlander Institute is providing what our teachers feel is useful training, then we should stick with them for a second year and have that training then expanded to the elementary school. So I don't really care who the provider is, as long as it's high quality and our educators feel like it is useful to their classroom. So we are having those conversations, and I will share that feedback once we get it. I just haven't had the chance, and we'll gather that feedback after the March 9th PD that is happening.
Great, thank you. It's good to hear that those things are happening.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, the next item is facilities and finance. Dr. Conti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, I'm sure, is everyone's favorite part of the night when I stop talking as much. So,
No.
Bob, we have a Fox Hill? We have a building update for Fox Hill. I know I spoke to the Doran Whittier over a break, and they are starting to think about some forums, some community forums, to get input from different aspects of the community. I believe we have a meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock where we'll sort of get more detail in that, but I'm sure I'm missing a lot of other things that are going on. So what's going on with Fox Hill?
Well, again, through the chair, thank you. So first is we had our early consultants in, which was discussed at a previous Fox Hill School Building Committee meeting. Early consultants included hazmat and geotech testing. So Monday, Tuesday last week during vacation, both vendors were on site performing tests for 2 days. I think there were 13 holes drilled into and around the property of Fox Hill, which are now filled in, but it was great that no students and staff were there, and they were able to perform all of those tasks, and again, inside and outside of the building, as well with the hazmat testing. Also last week, we performed, when I say we, myself, members of Doran Whittier and Danisco met at both Fox Hill and Pine Glen, and we did or participated in the initial on-site discovery. So as part of the MSBA project, they still need to examine both schools, decide whether or not we are eligible for addition renovation, just a renovation, or potential new school. So they look at both of those sites. I don't know exactly how many staff members were on site, but I think at one point there were 15 cars in the Fox Hill parking lot. So they had people outside looking at property, people inside looking at every one of our closets, moving ceiling tiles. So, they really got the ins and outs of all of our buildings. So that will be shown in a later report. That will be part of the MSBA package. I also wanted to say that, yes, no working group meetings took place last week, but we do have working group meetings starting tomorrow, and we'll continue back now that we are back from break. So that's all I have for the Fox Hill update.
Thank you. All right. Anything else anyone wants to add? Okay. Thank you. How about BHS update? One of our favorite subjects.
Standing agenda item.
Yeah.
It is, and again, because we're in budget season, we're going to be working on language for a warrant. I think you're aware of that warrant, and so you'll be voting on a Burlington High School feasibility study warrant to move forward. And my understanding is that we're going to be submitting that warrant separate from our other capital warrants that we'd be proposing. So again, not a lot of specifics to report, but I think a really big step to that we're in the middle of creating. And so again, Mr. Moran, you'll be seeing capital warrants that you would normally see, plus a individual warrant for a high school feasibility study, similar to the Fox Hill feasibility study that we went through the Matt. Bob, is there anything else for the
Yeah, if I could, through the chair. So I guess if I could actually take this moment to confirm with the committee that the MSBA Statement of Interest core program window is open. We do have access, Dr. Conti and myself, to go in and submit a statement of interest. I believe it's the interest of this body to submit again a statement of interest. So if that is the case, I will continue with the application process. As part of the application, I will need to have a read statement from you all and a vote publicly, and then it will also have to go to the select board as well. And I think the closing date is April 6th, don't quote me, but early in April. So the statement of interest, we have, less than 2 months to complete that, which I'll take care of if that is what you all decide is a good action.
Ms.
The
Monaco.
statement of interest, are we kind of locked into either fixing up the old building as opposed to what if the feasibility study says we need a new building? Do we have any options to ask for both?
Again, through the chair. So this year, you do not, as MSBA has removed the accelerated repair option. So the only thing we can submit is a core program statement of interest. That's what we have submitted for the past 12 years is core programs. Accelerated repair, unfortunately, we didn't qualify for. That would be something catastrophic, like a roof failed, and we need to accelerate that repair right away. So again, we would be submitting for a core, which does include add renovation, but also includes a new building as an option.
It also includes a new building?
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification. Ms. Simon?
Yeah, I actually had a similar question, but after working with the Fox Hill project, I understand that even if all we were asking for was a renovation or if all we were asking for was a new build, they were going to require us to look at all those options. So yes, let's go ahead with it, and we'll have that feasibility study will lead us to the information that MSBA would need if they, for some chance, approved us. So thank you, Bob.
Thank you. And just for clarification, this would be for the high school, correct? Okay, because we can only submit one priority, and we have to name that priority. So it would be a high school statement of interest. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Massardo?
If we pay for a feasibility study in the meantime, will they allow that into the, if we, for some miracle, get accepted on the 14th try?
Again, not guaranteed,
Okay.
but if history serves us correct, then we've done that in the past, and other schools have done that in the past.
Okay.
As long as it meets the criteria and so forth, we may be eligible for it, but not guaranteed.
You mean we may be eligible for, like, to skip the
We
feasibility?
may be
okay.
eligible for reimbursement if MSBA deems it appropriate. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, thank you. All right, the next item is budget session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now the important stuff. So again, I want to make sure that Nicole present the budget document which you all received. I just want to make sure that the school committee recognizes the incredible amount of work that goes into preparing this document. So Nicole, thank you and your staff for doing that. I know we still have a long way to go, but there's been a lot of work done prior to presenting you with this document. So Nicole, if you want to go over some highlights, I will turn it with Madam Chair to Nicole.
Thank you. I can't take all the credit for that. Liz Malamontes definitely plays a key role and puts in a ton of work on this too. So thanks to Liz. So our operating budget guideline for FY24 is a 3.75%, which is an increase of approximately 2.2 million over current year. As most of you already know, our personnel costs account for about 90% of our operating budget. All of our union contracts, with the exception of our instructional assistants, are settled for fiscal year '24, and the COLAs on those are at 3%. And those increases are already incorporated into all the personnel schedules that you see throughout the document. So with a 3.75 guideline and cost of living increases at 3%, we asked departments to level fund their expense budgets to the best of their ability. We have requested that departments level fund expenses for the last few fiscal years. With the rise in cost of supplies, this might not be something that we can continue to sustain in future years, so just something to keep in mind. Page 5 of the document has a scorecard that compares expense budget requests over the current fiscal year, so you can easily identify any changes of which departments asked for increases that you'd want to further drill down into. For FY24, we had operating budget position requests of 25.9 FTEs. Which total approximately 1,965,000. All position requests submitted have been included in the document that you received, and there's a brief rationale included for each position at the end of the document, but I'm sure that each department, as they come before you to present, will be able to elaborate in more detail on those. The new requests are highlighted in blue in the document, and you'll also notice that some are highlighted in green, which indicate that those positions are funded from an alternate source, such as a grant. And so inclusive of all of the new position requests, the budget is currently at a 6.98% increase, which is approximately 1.9 million over guideline.
What was the percent?
6.98.
Okay.
7%.
So there's some decisions that need to be made.
Yeah, let's go to town meeting and ask for 6.9.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Ms. Gasha. Anyone have any questions? I didn't really, like I said, I was driving home when this got sent, so I didn't have a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
Ms. Simon?
I seem to remember, I downloaded the document this afternoon and didn't have a chance to look at it, but my memory serves, there was a page where you had the list of the new positions that were requested. Is that in here, and where would I find it?
Yes,
is
that's in there. I think it's actually like the last, at the very end of the document. The document's also linked, so to help you navigate it. So there's different areas to click to get you back to like a summary page, so you don't have to flip through the 230 pages.
Although, if I remember correctly, I can't do that on the iPad. I have to do it in Drive. Oh, but I have to do it in Drive, not on the attachment or something. Does that sound right? Oh, well.
That's out of my area of
I can
expertise.
do it in Drive, okay. Oh, you are? Okay. But, I mean, linking, the linkages where you go back and forth. But anyway, okay, you can show me later.
So again, the additional position request starts on page 225.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, again, I would like more time to look at it too, but thank you for the presentation and all the hard work that you did in conjunction with your team. And Ms. Monaco?
Dr. Conti, has there been any further discussion with the financial team about these guidelines?
No, not from the, from our initial conversation several weeks ago.
Where we got the 3.75?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I'd just like to comment that level funding for so many things is completely unsustainable. It just, won't work. We're going to be using crayon parts instead of crayons if this keeps up. And I think that we all know that we have needs for staffing, for ELL, for mental health issues, and for special education issues. I think somehow we need to work with the town to make these needs known. And of course, we'll come in as close as we can to budget guidelines, but I honestly don't see us making that. And I would suggest that as a committee, whatever we find that we really, really need to ask for, that as a committee, we go to town meeting and ask for it. And I just wanted to say that up front as we start. I don't want to go through this budget feeling like we're totally behind the eight ball, that we have all of these needs, and yet we can't fill any of them. So yeah, I just wanted to speak out about that.
Thank you, Ms. Monaco. Mr. Foss?
Do the needs that were highlighted during executive session, are they included in this document as well?
I see a couple.
You do?
Yes, most of them, some of them will land on the accommodated side.
Oh, I see, right, of course.
So
Sure.
you'll get that section of the budget at a later
Gotcha.
date.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So I guess the next thing is adjournment.
Madam Chair, just before we adjourn, I just last night gave me the opportunity, and we haven't had many this winter season, which I'm very grateful for. I do want to make sure that I express some gratitude to Kevin Keene at DPW and his crew. I know they were out treating the roads all night. We talk very early in the morning, and he's often been up all night working. Bob, you brought all the custodians in early. They were here clearing sidewalks and sanding and shoveling, so there's a lot of work to do as hard as those decisions are, and sometimes as disagreeable as they are to many individuals. There's a lot of people that work very hard to make sure schools are ready and open and safe. So again, I thanked Kevin this morning, but I want to make sure I thanked him this evening as well. And he does a lot to make sure the town is ready to function during a snowstorm. So Kevin, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so a motion, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, so 500, we are done.